I want to go now to the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. And Congressman, obviously, you see the report, you hear this testimony. Do you think the president was listening to his intelligence chiefs today?
Well, I hope so, but this has been a pattern since the president first got into office. He says one thing, the intel community says another, and he has no facts to back him up. It is very, very disturbing that our president does not listen to his own intel community, but even worse, he undermines their credibility with our international partners, with our adversaries. When they look at the United States, how can they trust us? How can they work with us when the president who's in charge is contradicting the very people who he relies on?
So he does do so blatantly, but what they did today was incredibly blatant, right? They didn't say it behind closed doors. They went in public testimony, they put out a report, and they contradicted everything that he has said on these crucial issues. Does that make you worried that they did this in a public forum as if he's not listening privately, or does it give you reassurance that they're contradicting him publicly? Where do you fall?
Well, the whole thing is worrisome. Yes, it gives me a little bit of reassurance that they are willing to say the truth publicly. But this is not the first time. Over and over again, the intelligence community has said, we have no doubt Russia meddled in our elections. And the president has continued to deny it. This has gone on over and over and over again. I hope that the intelligence community continues to do its job, continues to be driven by the facts and reality, and not by the president's fantasies. So it is good when they do that publicly, but it is still a very worrisome situation.
All right, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell today went to the Senate floor and said he is going to offer an amendment that basically is going to say U.S. troops need to stay in Syria and Afghanistan, right, which, of course, is contrary to what the president has said. Mitch McConnell, obviously, crucial person to be taking him on. Here's some of what he said.
My amendment would acknowledge the plain fact that al-Qaeda, ISIS, and their affiliates in Syria and Afghanistan continue to pose a serious threat to us here at home.
Is that enough? I mean, obviously, he's with him on other issues, but that he is taking a stand here on the issue of ISIS and al-Qaeda in Syria.
Well, I want people to understand the issue. The real problem with what the president is doing is there are no facts behind it. He continually says things that are completely untrue, like ISIS is defeated, we can go home. And also he makes these decisions without consulting anybody. Pulling out of both Syria and Afghanistan was done apparently without even consulting the Department of Defense, certainly not our allies. There is an argument that can be made for reducing the number of troops in Syria, in Afghanistan. I'm personally open to that argument. But to do it in a tweet and to think that you can do it in the blink of an eye does not reflect the reality. And also it has to be driven by policy. Why is he withdrawing the troops? Just because 3 years ago he said he thought we should? Or is there actually a policy behind it to achieve U.S. interests? Look, I mean, having a huge military presence around the world is something that is concerning to me. If we can responsibly reduce that, I'm open to the argument, but the president hasn't made an argument.
Okay.
He just off the top of his head said, let's get out.
All right. And of course, I want to remind everybody he lost incredibly highly regarded Secretary of Defense over that very specific thing, right?
Exactly.
Jim Mattis left because of that. But when you talk about a lighter footprint, okay, the president is saying he wants to bring troops home.
Yes.
But it doesn't appear at all because he wants to have a lighter footprint. Because I want to show you this picture, Chairman, taken yesterday in the White House briefing room. That is a close-up of John Bolton's legal pad in which he writes 5,000 troops to Colombia. Now, Colombia, of course, shares a border with Venezuela. By the way, the president, has spoken out and talked about military intervention in Venezuela, which then Secretary Jim Mattis had to come out and say, I'm sorry, that we're not even considering it. But that was a while ago. Now this is totally new. 5,000 troops to Colombia. The White House response when we asked him about it was, as the president said, all options are on the table. So what do you think? Is that a decent option? Sending 5,000 Americans to Colombia?
And again, what are our national security interests in Venezuela? What is his explanation for the policy? This seems to be being made on whims and fantasies and no reality behind it. The idea that we're going to go in and do battle in Venezuela over who should be running that country, I don't see a single U.S. national security argument for doing that, and the president hasn't yet made one.
But yet in Syria and Iraq, where there are those arguments, he wants to remove those troops. And by the way, I want to make it clear, 5,000 troops would be more than we have in Syria right now.
Yes. Yeah, there are roughly 2,000 in Syria right
Yeah.
now. So there is an utter absence of policy behind the president's decisions and what he says. He doesn't seem to have a national security strategy. He has what he feels like doing when he gets up in the morning. And again, that is a very, very difficult way for the United States to achieve its national security interests, whether we're talking about in Latin America or dealing with ISIS or dealing with Afghanistan. We just want a clear, coherent policy, and we don't have that from the president.
All right. Chairman Smith, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.